Welcome to the Financial Purpose Podcast. All opinions expressed by me or guests of the podcast are solely our own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Life Moves Wealth Management. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for any investment or financial decisions. Clients of Life Moves Wealth Management may maintain securities in the positions discussed in this podcast. And I think I just said that backwards. Let me say the last paragraph again. Clients of Life Moves Wealth Management may maintain positions in the securities discussed in this podcast. Okay, there we go. Trying to do the disclosure for memory, and it's off. I did it way better last week, but anyway, there it is. Welcome to the Financial Purpose Podcast. I am, of course, Dale Schaefer, your host, and I'm glad that you're listening today. I want to talk today about words. Fairly straightforward topic, and here's why this particular topic I think is important and makes sense to talk about. I was meeting with a friend of mine earlier today, two friends of mine who are I'm working with, they're networking partners, and we're looking at putting together a couple of brunch and learn sessions over the next year, educational, financial in nature, but pretty fairly approachable, easy stuff. And I asked them, they primarily work with people in the real estate and the lending profession. So I asked them what people in real estate and lending, what's important to them, what's top of mind, what are the things that would be of help and of interest to them. And they turned the question around and asked me what people that I talk to are saying and what's of interest. And I thought that was a really good question because I hear all kinds of things, as you might imagine, when I'm talking with clients and even people who are considering hiring me as their advisor. And in fact, in the very first meeting that we have, the agenda and the format's very simple. There's usually a little bit of early icebreaker type, get to know you conversations, weather, sports, salt, food, all the typical stuff. And then I'll usually ask a question like, why are we here today? Or what's most important to you that you want to make sure we talk about during our time? And so they'll give me kind of what they see as the reason for the meeting, and I'll write that down, and that'll help kind of set the direction for what we're going to talk about. And then I ask the next question, and the next question or two kind of take up most of the rest of the first meeting. And that first question is, it goes like this. If I could ask you to describe, using only one word, how you feel about money today, what's the first word that comes to mind? And don't overthink it. And so I will hear all kinds of words, but they tend to be about the same, maybe 7 or 8, 10-ish words that are more commonly given. And those words are very important because they have a very often deep and profound meaning to you, which is why they came to mind, which is why that's the word that you would choose to relate how you feel about money. So often those words that mean a lot to you are going to be words like, I want to have enough, or retirement is important to me, or I want to get somewhere, get there. I've heard that one a bit. Or savings, or emotional words like happy, confident, scared, fearful, stressed, uncertain. Sometimes the words are family, sometimes the words are career, sometimes it's taxes, right? But those tend to be the words, and most often they're the emotional words. How I feel about money, right? Because that's the way I ask the question. How do you feel about money? I am content. I am scared. I am fearful. I am stressed about money. I have enough. I don't have enough. I'm concerned about having enough. All of that. And that becomes very important. And usually, whatever your word is, I know that there's often a deeper root that we want to dig toward because it just helps me understand where you're coming from. And it kind of lays the foundation of the work that we'll do together, or at least helping me get to know how you intersect money and financial decisions. And so the follow up question is usually something like, hey, thanks for sharing that word. Can you tell me a little bit about why that's what came to mind first? And then the real conversation starts. And I think again that's important. And I write those things down because then I start to get a pretty good comprehension. There are words that you expect me as a financial advisor to feel are very important. And those are words that I might use or that you might see somewhere on a report or on a maybe an investment strategy or an investment policy statement or something like that. And those words are going to be things like portfolio or financial planning or Sharpe ratio or risk adjusted return or cash flows, stock market, diversification, yields, expected return, dividends, all that kind of thing. You might even come across words that are like bullish or bearish or monetary policy or technical analysis or fundamental analysis or relative strength of the market. Those kinds of things, those are the words that you expect me to A, you expect me to use them, and B, you expect me to believe are the words that are important. And they are. However, the words that really should be most important to me are the ones that you use because they're the ones that mean something to you. Over time, the words that I think are important for understanding the language of finance we'll get to over time, but where we need to start is with the words that are most important to you. The reason why I think that's such a crucial part of the work that we do is because there's some mental gymnastics involved with having never defined those words. And in my experience, you might sit down with a financial professional, be it an advisor or maybe a CPA or maybe even an insurance agent or somebody like that, and they're going to use words and you're going to use words, and they may not mean the same thing. It might be the same word, but you might not have the same understanding. And I think when you do that, it creates some friction in the advisory process. And when I say when you do that, what I mean is by not doing the work to really get a clear understanding of what each other means by using the same words or even different words to talk about either the recommendation or how you feel about what's being presented or what's happening in your world around you. I also think that not doing the work to define those words might actually keep you from knowing how you're ever going to get there, if that's your word, or maybe even knowing when you'll have enough, if that's your word, to make your next transition. And so I think without the work, the end result is definitely a value gap. What I have found in the past is what tends to happen is you'll say, I'm concerned about retirement and I'm a CFP. I'm going to go into my planning software. I'm going to pull out my trusty calculator, which actually looks like this for those of you watching. I love this thing. This is like my favorite. This goes with me everywhere. It's in my backpack. It comes out on the desk every morning. It comes out on my desk at night because I just use it a lot. Because I'm a nerd. Yeah, I just am. So I'm going to do some calculations and I'm going to tell you how you should feel about retirement based on what I understand about what should be important to you about that word. And it's usually going to be a number. It's usually going to be a number that's going to say whether or not you should feel good or apprehensive or concerned about retirement, depending on where you are. When you say retirement, you might mean something like, I want to start my own business. I want to not have to send these stupid TPS reports anymore. And bonus for you if you know the reference, and by now I'm probably sure everybody walking the planet does, at least in the Western Hemisphere. But that's typically what's going to happen. You're going to mean something by it, and I'm going to assume something else. So we've got to get on the same page with our words. And I think that this is important in any relationship that you have. I mean, it's important in marriage, it's definitely important with teenagers, but it's incredibly important with how you manage your finances. So I'm curious, in kind of a shorter episode today, what are some of the words maybe that you use or that you've heard that relate to money that are often misunderstood? If you could leave me a comment, I'd love to know those words. Because, like I said, I hear a bunch of different things, and I have clients who use words. And I had one maybe 2 weeks ago, and he was talking about what he wanted to accomplish over the next couple of years, and he just was feeling really good about the potential of getting there. And he kept saying getting there, and I paused and said, hey, what does getting there mean to you? What does it look like? How will you know? There's a song called "Nowhere Fast" by the band Incubus, and the chorus line is, "Will I ever get to where I'm going? And if I do, will I know when I'm there?" And that's kind of what I heard in my head when I was hearing this gentleman describe getting there, getting somewhere. If you can't paint that picture, or if you don't know what those words represent, you may never actually get there, even though you could have been there already and just not known it. So, anyway, I think it's crucial. This is how I do a lot of the work. This is where we start before we do any financial planning, before we talk about money, before we talk about investments. We talk about words. We talk about words around money, and that's going to give me a pretty good idea of not only what's most important to you, but where do we need to focus our attention in the advisory and the wealth management process. So that's it. Again, drop a comment. What are some of the words that get confusing or get misunderstood? And I'd love to talk to you about that in the comments. So that's it. Thanks so much for tuning in this time. And until next time, take care.